Hello and welcome to Your Choice 2020 General Election coverage on HOMTV. I'm Brandy Yates, and joining us for this candidate interview is Andy Phelps, a non-partisan candidate for Okemos School Board. Andy, thank you so much for being here. And at this time, we'd like to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself to our viewers.
Hi, Brandy. Thank you so much for having us. As all the candidates are aware, this time in 2020, it's very difficult to connect with voters in person. So any opportunity we can have to connect with citizens here in Meridian Township, and for me specifically Okemos, I'm happy to take advantage. So just a quick background about me. I'm frankly just a dad. I'm a husband, and I'm really passionate about providing the best education possible for our kids here in Okemos. I have a first grader and a fourth grader at Bennett Woods Elementary. My wife and I moved here in 2009, or we purchased our home in 2009 here in Okemos, specifically based on the reputation of the public schools and a community that's singularly focused on providing the best education for our kids. As everyone knows, there's no city of Okemos, there's no town of Okemos, there's no village of Okemos. It is a school district. So that is our goal here, and I'm proud to be part of a group of parents and families who want the best education for our kids. That's why I'm running for Board of Education.
Thank you. Each Okemos School Board candidate will be asked a standard list of 10 questions. Let's get started with question number 1. What qualifications do you bring to the Okemos School Board?
Yeah, so like I previously said, I'm a 13-year Okemos resident, like I said, a homeowner for a little over 10 years now. I have a bachelor's degree from Western Michigan University in political science and economics. I've worked for the state of Michigan for 16 years. I'm currently a manager with the Michigan Department of Corrections, where I handle all policy, FOIA, and offender ADA issues for the state. I'm also a board member of my local neighborhood association here in Wardcliff. My family, and me and my wife specifically, are extremely involved at school. We love it. It's something that makes us happy, and it's really what we like to spend our free time doing, whether it's any events, family council, volunteering in the classroom. In fact, my wife's in charge of ordering all the t-shirts for the kids. We're in the process of doing that right now, which is obviously different in a COVID pandemic. So, but that's what makes us happy and what we really enjoy. In addition, I was a member of the 2019 bond committee here in Okemos, so part of that committee, and in that, my job was presenting to the community. So various community groups, neighborhood associations, school groups, etc., wherever it was, just kind of presenting and explaining with the bond. And I was really proud to be part of that, just because it was a great bond, fiscally responsible. The district did a great job in putting that together. So I was really happy that that passed, and I was proud to be part of that group. And I leave the best for last, the most fun. I'm a volunteer softball and basketball coach for my daughter. So that was a lot of fun, and I can't wait for the time we're able to do that again.
Question number 2. What do you think are the top 2 services that need the most attention to provide the biggest benefit for students and parents?
Right. So in this current time with this pandemic, our parents and students need a ton of support. And this is a unique environment, something that none of us have ever managed or have to dealt with before. So it's going to provide unique challenges. The district needs to be nimble. We may be providing different types of supports for our families and students that we have in the past. And we need to be looking into the best practices on how we can do that. And those may be different for each student. Some students may need a lot of emotional support, but they're doing really well academically, and the opposite might be true, or both. We just need to, provide those to the fullest extent that we can possible. And by that, I don't just mean providing website links. I mean actually, hands-on, people-on support. So how we can help our students and families and parents too, especially for younger kids. We do that here. Lots of hands-on educating our kids, more than we ever had in the past. So any support that the district can provide for that, I think is going to be really helpful. And the other service that's vitally important for many families is continuing to provide the food services for our kids. So many families depend on that service. And I'm proud that the district has continued to do that. I think that's a great thing. I think the district, though, going forward, and I know they're probably looking at this, figuring out ways to provide that in a more convenient way, whether it's different times, different dates, different locations, maybe, even if we could have just some sort of delivery service, I don't know. But any way we can provide, those services to our family in a more convenient way so as many families as possible can participate is going to be a great thing. And I definitely think that's important.
Question number 3, it's kind of a long one, so please bear with me. Remote learning has become the new normal in many school districts due to the COVID-19 pandemic. How do you think this will impact the future of education? And if elected, what steps would you take to help ensure adequate resources are available and student success continues no matter the circumstance?
Right, so that's obviously happening here in Okemos now. We're fully online, virtual, at least through the end of October. And I wouldn't be surprised if that continues after that, as long as we stay here in stage 4 in Meridian or in Meridian Township. I think the format has a potential to create huge gaps between different students. And that's going to be something we're going to be dealing with in the future, no matter what. A lot of kids, might have a full-time parent or guardian at home to guide them through this process, which, versus some kids who are at daycare with no help, no assistance. When I listen to my kids' Zoom meetings now, I mean, there's some kids who they want to say something, but they don't know how to unmute. And the answer is, can you try to find an adult? And there is no adult, because there's going to be potentials for huge gaps here that the district's going to need to look at. And we're going to have to work hard to close these gaps, just because I anticipate them happening. This needs to be a priority for the district going forward. I know they're working on it. If you listen to the board now, that's something that they're looking at. But we need to be proactive, and I think they're doing that. But looking at where are these gaps and then attacking them as soon as we find them to make sure that they're as small as possible. And then when we get back, we need to really be aggressive on making sure we're closing these gaps as soon as we can.
Question number 4. Please comment on how you believe the Okemos School District and the school board should approach new or continued diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts.
Yeah, Brandy, this is a really important issue. And frankly, it's something I'm really proud of Okemos that's really kind of taken a leadership role in this in the state on these issues. It's important to note that, this equity, it's not a destination. You don't just get there one day. It's definitely a journey. And, I, myself included, learning more all the time. By listening and seeing where are we having these gaps in equity and how can we improve that. I think everyone, and no matter what your opinion is, no one wants these barriers. Everyone wants these barriers removed for all students. We want every student to be able to achieve to their highest potential. And especially here in Okemos, we want them, and I say that all the time, I want the actual best possible educational experience for all of our kids. And that means literally everybody. And if we don't have, if we have gaps in that, and there's equity issues with some people aren't able to achieve, we need to meet those challenges and figure out what we can do to be better. And like I said, I'm proud that the district is doing this, and district has been involved with this for a long time, and frankly, they're a leader in it, but we must continue. It's going to be important for the district to keep listening, learning, and acting, and I look forward to being part of that process if elected.
Question number 5. Multiple parts here. Please address policies regarding safety for kids at school that combat issues such as bullying, violence, and drug use.
Yeah, so this is an important issue. I mean, especially in an online environment, it's different than it is in a physical environment. So our kids right now, I mean, for the past 6 months, have spent more time on devices, online, on computers, than probably they ever have. So the issue of online safety and security for me is going to be really important, especially in the near term. I was proud when I worked on one of my previous jobs. I'm with the Department of Corrections now. I was previously with the Attorney General's office. I was part of a group who founded the Michigan Cyber Safety Initiative. And actually, this was a group of folks who went out and presented to various different grades, K through 8 students, on the importance of being safe online, tips, things to look out for, etc. And this group, we actually presented at Okemos. This was almost 10 years ago at this point. But we presented Okemos to kids a while back. I think that's something the district should be looking at, things like that. We should be gathering information and resources, but we have internally and externally. So how we can help kids right now be safe while in an online environment, because there's a lot of stressors, a lot of pressure, especially, as it does relate to drug use and violence and acting out, things you see online that the kids need to be aware of, and how we can help them with those new pressures that they didn't have before. This screen time is increased exponentially. We need to be prepared with the challenges that come with that. There is positives, but there's definitely negatives. So we need to be looking at, that pressure that we do have, how we can improve, and how we can make sure keep our kids safe in this environment.
Question number 6. How can the school district balance the budget and meet the needs of its students and the core curriculum?
Yeah, Grandy, this is something I'm actually really proud of too. Just this past week, the district, they got their audit back from their auditors for the year, and it was actually really impressive. The district has a great financial house. It's strong. The audit that we saw shows how well the district is doing at handling these finances. There was no gaps, no concerns. It all looked really good. So that's a good first step, right? Before you can even figure out how you're going to do this, you got to make sure your fiscal house is in order, which we have certainly done, which I'm happy to see. But the next part is, and this was actually good news, so initially over the summer, there were some major fears on this budget that we were going to have to cut. And the district actually did cut a ton of money based on expectation that we were going to lose a lot of money. The budget, though, seems to be a lot better than anticipated. So that's really good news. So the district should be looking at, ways that maybe we can bring back some of those cuts that they did make, and maybe, bring them back in a different way that might, help us in this current time in this pandemic to see, if there's different ways we can allocate some of those resources. Possibly, I don't know. It's just something the district should be looking at. But that doesn't mean we're, as the governor says, we're not out of the woods yet. The budget is still very uncertain. We don't know what's going to happen. So I think the district needs to play it safe and then, be conservative with our spending to make sure we're in a position where we can prioritize our priorities, make sure that money and funds are there for those. So we're not in a position later where we have to make drastic cuts. I think that's going to be really important.
Question number 7. What role do you believe extracurricular activities such as athletics and the arts play in education?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in this. I think it's extremely important. Education's two-pronged. You got to have the extracurriculars as well as the academic stuff. It's so important for the emotional side for the kids, and I think at all grades. I know me growing up, some of my best memories were extracurricular type things, whether that was sports or things at school. The kids need that. I think it's part of the fun of school. Kids want to have fun at school. It helps you learn. So I think those going forward are going to be very important. Those things bring out the creativity in our students. That teaches them teamwork. Things like that are going to be really important later in life. So if elected, I would encourage the administration to really continue to think about ways we can expand extracurricular activities for our students at all grade levels. A lot of people just think extracurriculars are just a high school thing. I think that we should be looking at all grades because that's just so important in my mind. These schools, like, we talked about it earlier, we don't have a city here. Okemos is a school district. Our schools really are the hub of our community, and we can think about ways to, bring the students in to have these extracurricular events. I think that's a great thing. And more than that, we should try to, I know Okemos approves sports, and they're doing so in a safe way, which is really important. If there's different ways beyond sports, whether that's the arts or other extracurricular activities, to maybe bring students, together in some way, during this COVID time, obviously we have to make sure it's safe. But I think that's going to be a positive thing if we were able to do that.
Question number 8. What do you believe is the school board's role in student and or faculty disciplinary action?
Now, this is an interesting question. So there's certain decisions that have to be made by the board. However, in my opinion, that the role of the board should be advisory in nature as much as absolutely possible. Beyond the board makes to make sure that all the discipline decisions are being made equitably in an equitable way. That's very important. I know there's, we had this summer, there was a community forum about this, and there were some major concerns about that. And I think the district needs to make sure that that's being done correctly and equitably. I think that's an important role of the board. But beyond that, I'm a big believer in hiring the best staff you can, rewarding them, and then setting their goals and letting them do their jobs. This should be something I think that should be focused on more of a micro level rather than a macro level, because I think once it gets to the board, I think a lot of decisions really have been made, and we want to make sure that our staff are empowered to be able to make a lot of those decisions locally and really kind of solve some issues that may come up as it relates to discipline before it gets worse. So that would be my opinion on that.
Question number 9. Please address where Okemos stands with college readiness.
So we're obviously proud in Okemos about the high quality of our schools, something to be proud of. We have a huge percentage of our kids are going to college, which is fantastic. And we have, I think most would say we're pretty well doing a good job at being ready for college. And that's something to be proud of. But that doesn't mean we need to stop. We need to keep working on this issue, especially as it relates to equity, and make sure that all students, not just students who are advantaged, but underadvantaged students might also have all these opportunities as well, as it relates to AP classes or anything really. We need to be looking at it as a whole big picture. But addition, I mean, we also have to recognize that maybe not all students are ready for college, or maybe they don't want to go to college. I mean, there's a lot of trades out there that are really important and frankly can pay more than college. So we should be supporting students no matter what career path or what they want to do. You know, whatever their opinion is on what their future holds, we want to support them in that and help them achieve their goals.
Question number 10, and our final question. What do you consider the top 2 challenges facing the Okemos School District today and in the future?
Right. So right now, obviously taking up all the oxygen, and rightly so, is this pandemic and how we're educating our kids during this time. I mean, this is, I don't think anyone would argue, this is the biggest challenge facing the district in, you know, frankly, decades probably. I mean, educating children in a way that's never been done, incredibly challenging. One thing I would note, and I think everyone believes this, we need to continue though to provide the highest quality education experience possible to all of our students, even during this environment. I think our parents, our students, and our community, frankly, expects this. I don't think we can cut corners. I think we need to have high expectations no matter what the situation is. The district, in my opinion, should be learning constantly. Let's be reviewing all the best practices from around the country. What are some districts doing that's working? What's not working? How can we improve? In addition to that, and once we find out ways we can improve, we have to be self-reflective and say, okay, listen, this isn't working, this is. Maybe we should try it this way. So being nimble and flexible with how we're educating our kids and practices that we're doing is going to be vitally important. I think we need to continue to do that. And we constantly need to be gathering feedback. So feedback from our teachers. Listen, how is this working? How can we support you better? What are things that we can do from a district level that would provide you the resources you need to, you know, meet our goals? Because our goals are still to educate our kids to the highest quality possible, right? And all kids. So what can we be doing, you know, to improve you or, you know, your ability to do that? In addition, we need to be talking to our students and our parents. And we need to be asking them more than just, you know, let us know if there's a problem. I think we need to be proactive. Listen, how is this working? What can we do better? You know, what's not working? What's doing, you know, what's working really well? That way we're constantly evolving this, just because, like I said, this has never been done before. No one has the script. No one has the answer. We're all learning here, and I totally appreciate that, but that doesn't mean learning stops. We need to keep going forward and providing the best education for our kids. But you know, like I said, the other flip side to that in the future, this pandemic will end at some point, and we will be back to school in person. So going forward, after this is done, I will note, so an important thing coming up will be, we have a bond expiring in Okemos. So years and years ago, when they built the high school in Bentwood Woods, the district borrowed a, you know, fairly decent sum of money to fund that. That bond is expiring here during the term that I'm actually running for. So there's going to be an opportunity here in the district to really improve our facilities and bring them up to date, and you know, make them not improvements that are much needed, to bring them up to, you know, top-notch facilities, which I think is what we expect. So I think that's going to be important going forward, and how we do that, and what improvements we make to our facilities to, you know, to make sure that they're the, you know, best in the state, which is what I would want if I was a teacher, a student, or a parent. So that's kind of what I'm thinking going forward.
Thank you. So we are now done with our standard list of questions. We have some time remaining. Would you mind if I ask a follow-up or two?
Sure, please.
Okay. You talked about screen time and remote learning and having a bunch of challenges with that. Can we talk a little bit, and this might be about your background, cyberbullying, what kind of things, there are a lot of screens and they're on it more. So how do you think the district should address cyberbullying or bullying in general?
Yeah, that is important. You're right, because, you know, I think we see it, you know, online now. People are a lot more aggressive on a computer than they are in person. So bullying can be much worse actually online than it is, you know, in an in-person environment. So I think that gets back to, you know, what I mentioned, but educating our kids and how, you know, to recognize these behaviors. And that's both, so it's on the receiving end of how to respond, but it's also on the giving end. Listen, we need to tell these kids, listen, when you're saying these things, you may not mean it, but it really is hurtful. And we need to, you know, educate on both sides for our kids to make sure that they're, one, recognizing when these things come up and bullying comes up and how to react, and to make sure they're aware how hurtful some words and actions can be to others. So you're absolutely right, though. Yeah, cyberbullying is going to be huge, and I'm sure I can only imagine it's getting worse right now. So we need to be prepared and helping our kids to react to that.
Thank you. And then just one more quick follow-up. We were talking about serving all students in an equitable fashion.
Absolutely.
Anything you'd like to say about special education needs or mental health awareness for students or even teachers?
Yeah, so especially in this time, I mean, it's totally unique, and we need to be prepared to provide support to our kids during this time. One thing that I think is good, we do have, staff here in Okemos who have been, kind of reaching out to, hey, if you have a problem, contact us, which is great. But I really think we can do more maybe in reaching out specifically to students. Send an email, shoot a, hey, can I schedule time with you? I'd just like to know how you're doing. What are you thinking? What kind of place are you in? I think that's going to be important. People want to be, people want to be able to talk and explain how they're feeling and tell their story. And I think that's going to be important from a mental health aspect. But you're right, with special ed, that's one thing actually, we said that we're virtually 100%. That's not entirely true. So I'm glad that the district is able to bring in the special education kids in an in-person environment, which I believe they're doing right now. That's a positive thing, just because I think that they realize that, okay, we need to educate our kids, all of our kids, including special education students. How are we going to do that in an online environment? I just don't think that was deemed possible, especially to do it in an equitable way to make sure these kids are getting a proper education. So I'm glad they're back in person. But yeah, we need to continue to look at that on this, in this pandemic, to see how can we make sure we're treating these kids and providing them the education that they absolutely need, regardless of whether we're in person or virtually. It's very important.
Thank you. And that's all I have for follow-ups. And at this time, we'd like to give you the opportunity to make a closing statement to our viewers.
Great. Well, thank you, Brandy, again for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm not a politician, as you can see. I'm just a parent. I'm just a husband, and I have two kids, a first grader and a fourth grader. I love this district, and I want us to all, work together to get the best education possible for every one of our kids. I have a lot of experience, especially on a policy end, with kind of, managing these, big picture type issues. And I'm confident that I would be a board member who would be very empathetic, someone who could listen, and someone who could represent you well. So I'm asking for your vote, and I thank you for taking the time to watch today.
Well, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for watching this candidate interview with Andy Phelps, non-partisan candidate for Okemos School Board. I'm Brandy Yates, inviting you to watch live general election night coverage right here on HOMTV on November 3rd. I'm Brandy Yates. Thanks for watching.